Today I report about my site visit of a car shop in Germany and flood protection proposals.
Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast to the protection against heavy rain and flooding by Dr. Flood, Andreas Klippe.
So the big challenge is, how can house owners like you and me get a flood-free home? How can business managers like you and me get a flood-free company? And how can public servants provide flood-free critical infrastructure and livable cities?
Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast by Dr. Flood, Andreas Klippe. This podcast is for foresighted and proactive people who do not want to shovel the muddy water out of their room while standing in the midst of the disaster.
Therefore, those who design and plan, the architects and engineers, need to construct such buildings and cities, and that even when the entire environment is completely flooded. That is a challenge, and this podcast will give the answers.
Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast by Dr. Flood, Andreas Klippe.
Yes, hello and welcome again. Today I want to report about my site visit of a car shop in Germany. I'm currently in Germany and you see I'm coughing already, but we are far away from winter. It's very warm when I record it, and also it is already autumn. However, there was a flooding, and I want to report and tell you about the flood protection proposal I made. So first, it's disaster, and this happens when the small User Creek in the region of the Taunus in Germany overflowed its banks and flooded the car shop. And it's a funny name, User, USA. That's the name of the creek in the Taunus region. It's a small creek, very, very small. It's not a big river. It's really a creek, but it becomes a dangerous animal when the heavy rain is coming. You know that from other regions. So in the world. How did it start? And why I'm here in Germany? So first of all, everything started with an article in the newspaper. So there was a newspaper about me in some German an article in some German newspapers. And some hours later, so that was around lunchtime already, I got an email from a car shop, and the owner contacted me because he was previously flooded when this small User Creek was overflowing. And he said, I don't know what to do. I tried it with sandbags, but it's not really working. And I have a ramp, and parts of my company are below street level. So all the water is overflowing me, and that is never ending. That is like when you take a bath, perhaps some of you still have a bathtub and they don't close the faucet. But you can also do that with a sink in your bathroom. You just leave the faucet open and you close the drainage. And then after a while, you have not to wait so long. Your bathroom will be overflown, and then the living room, the kitchen, so everything else. And if you wait long enough, even a basement, if you have one, will be full of water. Perhaps it takes 1 week or several weeks. But anyway, you make it overflown just with one faucet. And that is the same effect when you have water coming from the street and your area is below the street level. And or you are even at the end of the street. That is even worse. Anyway, I don't know whether it is worse, but also not good. Then I did a visual inspection and I immediately saw this ramp. So we were walking around and the managing director, the owner, very kind person, he showed me around and he explained everything to me. And there was a workshop below. And by the way, that is a very beautiful car shop. It's one of the biggest for this for this American cars, and one of the biggest in this region. I want to say, and I did not count the cars, but I think there are almost 80 cars or something standing around everywhere. And of course, he's also repairing cars. And one workshop is below. Below it is almost, it's in the basement of a building, I would say. It's in the basement. So, and there's a second storeroom he also showed to me. And then he said, this flooding results from the drainage, from the canal. Because this drainage system is connected to the canal and the water came out. I always say it is a brown fontaine, the brown fontaine in a house and a bathroom when it comes through the toilet. But in this case, it came from the canal. But then we discussed, and I said, "Is it important to protect this room? What is inside?" And then he showed it to me. So there is a snow plug inside, snow plug machine or car vehicle. In Germany, we have snow in the winter time, and especially where he lives, it's a little bit elevated in the Taunus region. Very beautiful. So there are some small mountains, hills. Some others might say hills or not mountains. Well, there are mountains already. It's with the snow and the snow plug. It's similar to huge parts of the USA, Canada, of course, but also in Korea, in China and in Japan, where you have annual snow, and people, of course, use snow plugs to clean this, to empty the streets from the snow. So what is the solution? The first thing is to protect at the upper part of the ramp and not at the lower part. That can be done sometimes. It is done at entrances for subways. When you have a long ramp, then yes, you can protect at the lower part, but you must protect at the upper part as well. And why at the lower part? Because when you have an open ramp, let me say 20 meters, 30 meters, and it is wide enough, there is still rain coming. And it depends on the quality of your drainage system, but I'm quite sure this drainage system cannot carry the water load. So, way back to this car shop in Germany. So we said, okay, very fast it was clear we protect at the upper part of the ramp, and the opening widths were about 5 meter 45, 5 meter, let's say 5 meter 50. So these 5 meter 50, how do you protect it? First the height. Yes, of course, the height. I said, okay, you need 2 beams, so 600 millimeters height. That should be okay, because we must be above street level. And it is not that the whole street is flooded by 1 meter or 2 meters of water. No, it's 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters perhaps, but continuously. That means there's always water flowing downhill. And whether it is 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters, 20, it doesn't play any role. Everything will end up at your warehouse and find the way through the ramp and then end up in your warehouse. So what will be done? So 600 millimeters were enough. So in this case, for these demountable flood barriers, you need a middle support and to shorten the span. Because if you make it with in one span, you have imagine 5 meter 45 or 5 meter 50 long span. That reminds me the old Hollywood movies from the 1920s and 30s. So, with Charlie Chaplin was later, but with Buster Keaton. So that was without sound for the older people who still remember. So always these funny things when they were running around with these wooden planks. And so that is not really comfortable. So I suggest to split it into two parts. So you will need one middle support, and then the two parts at the left and the right side of this middle support. By the way, that is a dismountable middle support. It's not permanently installed, of course. And two compression bars that would also be advisable. And then, the next thing is, but once again, if you say, oh no, I want to have these 5.50 m Buster Keaton long span, then instead of a middle support, you need a back brace to stabilize the demountable flood barriers, the aluminum beams. Also, the profile that we are using is very sturdy and very thick, and sometimes it's twice the thickness of other products what I see in the market. And that makes, of course, a difference because there's more aluminum. The thickness of the aluminum even is thicker, is bigger. So the aluminum itself is bigger and the profile is bigger. Why? Because you need the stability to withstand the impact of floating debris and the water pressure. And if you don't have that, in case of floating debris, your barriers will be damaged. And at this moment, the sealing doesn't work anymore. That is what the people sometimes forget. They only see the barrier and they look to it when the sun is shining, but they forget that very often there's floating debris. Something is flowing around. Yeah, and that is why our aluminium barriers are heavy duty and made for that. So what did I want to say? Yeah, finally, how do you install these barriers? I told you that there's this ramp, and then I investigated the floor because we need to have a kind of foundation for to attach the back brace, compression bars, and or the middle support. Anyway, these vertical components in the middle. Huh? So I suggested to use a ground beam because the asphalt is terribly damaged already. So it must be rebuilt, and then it is easier to work with a ground beam. Yes, you have another steel part. In this case, because it's outside, hot dip galvanized steel is enough. You don't need a stainless steel. And a ground beam with embedded anchor plates. Why? Yes, the costs are higher for the material, but you save cost and headache when it comes to the construction because it is much easier to install a ground beam with an embedded anchor plate or several anchor plates for the civil workers compared to they make the asphalt and the concrete, and later you arrive and you drill, and then you realize the depth is not enough, the foundation is not stable enough, and everything is not working, and the drilling gives you another headache, or the people who drill don't do it in a good way, because for one anchor plate you need 4 drill holes, M16, M20, and if they are not aligned, you cannot install the anchors. So a lot of headache, especially with non-skilled people, and you never know who will do the civil works, what kind of education skills they have. So I highly suggest to work with a ground beam. You have all sorrows are gone. You have not to think about it anymore. It's very easy. And the side channels, I forgot to mention that at the left and at the right side where you embed the aluminum beams in case of a disaster. They are, of course, permanently installed attached at the wall. So the wall structure must be good enough as well. I explained that several times already. And then last but not least, normally when it comes to customers, I say, okay, that's fine. Okay, I agree. And then I always say, oh, we forgot one important thing. So what is this one important thing? Yeah, it is a storage system. The storage system to store the aluminum beams in a proper way that the lifetime is I always say up to 100 years, because and you can hang them, you can put them in a crate, in a box, you can store them vertically, horizontally. In this case, because we don't have that many barriers, if you have one middle support, you have 2 at the left, 600 high, and 2 at the right. That makes 4 barriers, and each about 2.75 meters or something like that. And you can attach them at the wall, so you have to find a good place. So the best is to store them very close to this entrance. However, that was close to the street, and I suggested not to put it there for safety reasons. You never know who wants to steal it, to sabotage it or whatever. So we agreed that we store it behind the building, where normally nobody is going to. And there was space enough, so I made the photos, of course, and we measured it. It was high enough space to attach these barriers, so you can do that with 2 barriers in parallel, so you only need the space for 2 barriers. You have 4 elements. Anyway, I hope I don't confuse you too much. Anyway, important is that you think about it and that you take a decision how you want to store the barriers, and that in case of a need, there you have very easy access. I also mentioned that you should cover them with a plastic, like what you use for trucks, for instance, and membrane thick enough to cover the base seal from the impact of sunlight. So once done, no worries anymore. And that is what we did. And that was my site visit of a car shop in Germany. And one of the other days I will tell you about our experience with car shops in Asia. But the challenge for all car shops in the world is the same. It is always the same. And that was one example I shared with you. So I hope that your building is flood-proofed, and you are safe, and stay safe and flood-free. I wish and hope for you that you make the right decisions when it comes to your personal flood protection. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast channel if you haven't already. Now it only remains for me to wish you a good day. Do something with it. Maybe until the next podcast episode. I would be very happy. See you then. As always, stay safe and flood-free. Your Andreas Klippe and the whole Flood Experts team.
That's it again with the new episode of Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast by Dr. Flood Andreas Klippe, German engineer, book author, and head of the Flood Experts. What can Dr. Flood Andreas Klippe protect for you? Anytime? Worldwide? Contact us, or just click through to www.floodexperts.de/bonus. Detailed engineering, German quality, safe. Flood protection secrets, the secrets you'll want to unfold.
Don't forget, you're only one flood barrier away.
Subscribe to the season, and you'll never be late for an episode.